Gabor Ganczer. Thanks for coming on, appreciate it. I wanted to talk a little bit about your journey so far and obviously getting to where you are with Football Queensland as the technical director. Firstly, what's happening at the moment here with Football Queensland? Obviously the NPL season is finishing up, there's still the FFA Cup happening at the moment, but for you and your role, what's the life of Gabor at the moment?
With football in general, we always thought in Australia that this is sort of a winter sport, but nowadays football is just 365 days a year. In our life, it is just, as you said, currently all of our three big leagues, the National Premier League, the FQPL and the National Premier League Women's League is at the final stage, and also the E-League and the W League is about to start, and we have also W League E-League club here in Brisbane. We consider them as part of the football family. So as soon as one season finishes, the next one starts, so it keeps us fairly busy, and we are already in the planning phase of our new programs going forward, the QAS Girls Full-Time Academy and also our regional programs sort of north of White all the way up to Cairns.
And the QAS program is new this year, isn't it? So that's been a good partnership with the QAS and bringing that underneath your roof. How have you felt that program's benefited Queensland football and their operations?
First of all, we all recognize that women's sport is booming all around the globe. I believe football may be one of the torchbearer here with a lot of traction gained around the World Cup this year in France. Some of the Western European leagues are impressing 20 to 30,000 crowds in a women professional game in their stadiums, and the interest was and is always high in Australia. Potentially now we have to look to maintain our status quo rather than catch up. We do have a slight advantage over many of the other football countries, but we have to watch out because Europe is already on our heels. So the QAS program is one of the initiatives we put in place to make sure that there is a succession plan for the Matildas in each state. So in New South Wales, Victoria, Western Australia, there are full-time girls academies functioning, and most of them are supported in some shape or form by the member federation. We are super lucky here in Queensland because the Queensland government, through their funding body, the QAS, is also contributing to the program. And this year we were able to create a pathway from the age of 13 all the way up to 17, 18 for talented and aspirational female football players.
That's fantastic, and I think you mentioned before how, I guess, forthcoming Australia is, or ahead of the pack Australia is, and especially grassroots for women's football, I've noticed as well. It's not so much, the BBL, women's BBL has gotten massive traction, WAFL's got massive traction on the wider scale, the professional or semi-professional world, but grassroots, I've noticed tremendous uptake in support around women's football as a whole. So it's been wonderful to see you guys really put a lot of resources into it along with the QAS, and from where I'm sitting as well, it seemed like a fantastic program.
We do put a lot of emphasis also on the grassroots part of the game. Our game development department has a women and girls strategy. We feel that it looks good, and it's a great feedback from the outside that it is already functioning, but the numbers can be grown here. We literally have a 4-to-1 ratio in female and male players, or the other way around. 4 times more male players playing the sport than female. We feel that amongst the kids, half of them at least girls, so we can grow this further. I believe getting into schools, potentially approaching parents on a wider scale and present our sport as a safe environment where team spirit and other great values can be represented, and also trying to keep it accessible and fairly cheap, and a sport that can be played all year round is is our advantage and will be our advantage to go forward.
So I didn't realise that stat, the 4-1. So there's a lot more room to grow for you guys. That's fantastic. We were talking a little bit off air about your Hungarian background. I was disclosing to you that I've got someone special Hungarian close to me. Let's talk a little bit about that and your move from firstly your time in Hungary. So I understand you were working more in media and marketing, but still in sport. So can you take me through a little bit of that journey from the business side of sport, and we'll get on to being full on in your role now. So take me through that journey in Hungary.
So I'm just like everyone else. I believe all of us starts with sport as an athlete, and I was myself an aspirational football player. But after I snapped my ACL at the age of 18, I really exhausted my chances, especially back then, 20 odd years ago, to become a professional football player, and my interest turned toward other areas of sport where I can still fulfill my dream. I was still playing for another 20 years until 38 on, full field, and I left nothing in the tank, but I was never able to earn a living just from football, so I started to work at one of the biggest newspapers in Hungary as an intern, and then a full-time sport journalist while I was doing my sports management studies at the uni. And it just became, a natural progress that first I was on the player side, and I went back to the other side of the fence being a journal. Then when I felt I'm way too much in an office world, I started to work and become media officers at professional teams, which had a component of living, working with a team 24/7. So you had the feeling that you are again closer to the field, closer to the action, and basically the main trigger what took me back to the technical side of the sport, and nowadays I'm being either a football coach or a technical director, was that I was fortunate enough to work with a former world-class player, Lothar Matthäus, an ex-German international who holds the record number of international games for Germany, and he also held a more important thing, the World Cup trophy itself, as captain of the German national team, signed in 1990 when they won the World Cup. So I was fortunate enough to work with him because he was the head coach of the Hungarian national team between 2004 and 2006, and I was serving as his media officer. When he figured it out that I'm actually an ex-player and also an amateur coach, he asked me to assist with match analysis, and slowly but surely I transitioned back from a media officer, I became a match analyst. From match analyst I became a coach because I started to do my coaching badges, and I spent a good 10 years in coaching by coming to Australia. Coaching and the technical director role become my full-time profession. So it was a constant transition, and at least 3, 4, if not 5, 6 completely different roles, but the common denominator was always the passion of football and sport.
Interesting. I didn't realise that transition and that link to the German head coach. What was you spoke before about in taking it back to the beginning of what you had just said, the sports journalist role. You were part-time or an intern, and then you transitioned that into a full-time role while juggling university studies. What was that transition like? Was that something where you yourself knew that you wanted to get a full-time job at that organisation, and as an intern it was a plan, or was that just something that just happened? Were you very driven and head-focused and knew that you wanted to work your way out from internship into a full role once you had finished university studies or during university studies, or was it just something that just evolved that way?
I was lucky and strong-headed enough to think that I want to work in something which is my interest or have passion for, and probably it started in year 9 in high school when, at a boring math subject, which wasn't my favorite, I had the Hungarian sports newspaper on my lap, and I spent countless hours of reading sports newspapers, at school in the morning, in the afternoon, and books and everything. So I really became obsessed not only playing the sport, but also gaining knowledge about it. And it turned out that I had some kind of affection, talent for writing as well, so I could verbalize my thoughts when I put pen to paper. As a matter of fact, I started my sport journalist career and my first article was written with a classic typewriter. My grandfather's heritage from, I don't know, mid last century.
Oh, wow.
We had a beautiful old typewriter at home, and I submitted my first article in 1992 to my editor on a nice typewritten format. So it was fairly natural. I didn't really plan to become full-time from an intern position, but they said, look, actually, you know the sport, the article is cool, we have good feedbacks from the editors, from the readers. You know, when someone moved out from the sports department, I was the first to come in, and I would say that it can happen to anyone who shows the right attributes in any kind of workplace.
So yeah, obviously it was your passion really that won them over, and passion and your ability. You know, it was obviously quite natural and easy for you to get in and get on the typewriter, no matter how old the typewriter was, to get in and get that done. So
yes,
it seems like the passion was really what drove you through it, and ultimately the passion for sport, which seems to be what has guided you throughout your different pathways. So speaking of that, you transitioned from living in Hungary to Coolum as the head coach in Coolum in Sunshine Coast, Australia. So what was that transition period like from Hungary to Australia?
Yeah, it was a conscious decision, so I can't say it was as natural. You know, you have to really make a big decision to change from one continent to the other, even in the 21st century. And interestingly enough, I came first to Australia with sports through sport. In 2000 at the Sydney Olympic Games, I was asked to work at the Sydney Regatta course as the media officer or press officer for SOCOG, for the Sydney Organizing Committee, and I spent there 2-3 months working in the media department of the Olympic Games. And back then my girlfriend, who is now my wife, was with me, and we really liked the country, and we said, okay, one day we may consider to move over here or spend a little bit more time in here. And 9 years later, in 2009, an opportunity came up as a football coach, not as a journalist, to come over again and test my skills. And I have to tell you that this career change was also a bit conscious, because I had to admit that potentially in the English language I couldn't make it as a 35 years old in the Australian media, because it is not my mother tongue. Mm-hmm. I was really sort of proud that my work is quality, and I wouldn't just come over to become a second string journalist when I'm not using my mother tongue. So in journalism I didn't see a future for myself if I come to Australia, but my career change was already brewing in the background, and I was gaining my coaching qualifications, and I was working as a media professional and a part-time football coach in Hungary and youth academies with my old senior team, becoming a player coach. So I felt, okay, if there's an opportunity in coaching, now I'm also ready to take on a full-time role. And the language barrier is a lot smaller there, you know. The tactical knowledge of the game is a lot more important, and your management skills are a lot more important than purely the words you say. You know, it goes beyond. And you know, the opportunity arose. I came over to Coolum Beach, a beautiful part of the world,
Fantastic.
To do football coaching for a few months. And both the club and myself liked the place. Couldn't I not like it?
No.
You know, it was a no-brainer. But the club was also really good to me. Basically, themselves, with the support of the Sunshine Coast Football Zone, who offered me also some part-time representative coaching jobs, were able to sponsor my visa, and comfortably the next year I could come over with my family with a permanent residency, and we have the security of settling in a new country.
That's a great story, because you were also doing some football analyst work as well, opposition scouting. That was obviously pre your time at Coolum. Was that in that transition period?
Yeah, so from media officer I become an analyst, a paid analyst, while still maintaining my media officer role. You know, I guess many people who work in sport find themselves working in two or three different roles to make a proper living out of their passion. So it's no different anywhere else. When I was working at a professional club, Ferencváros, which is the most popular football club of Hungary, I was doing the communication director role, but I had some part involvement with the technical part of the club, and I was happy to do so. So I developed other skills, and match analysis was one of the borderline disciplines, you know, between being a media officer and presenting a game plan, presenting an opposition scouting are really close to each other if you see the essence of it.
Okay. How so? How would you say the two roles would be similar in terms of your presentation?
Because you need to translate what you see in an analytical way, or even in a simplistic way, to other people. You know, one is through the media of a sporting article, or a commentary. The other one is a presentation format to a team or to a coaching staff.
Yep.
When you just translate the happenings, the patterns of the game in their technical language. I guess sport journalism is even easier, but because you try to provide it to the reader in an everyday way, more of a simplistic way. While in an analyst role, the in-depth technical and tactical knowledge and the jargon of each sport is an added quality you have to put on, but literally the two things are the same.
And I think that's a universal art that is quite rare amongst people, and that's the art of taking something quite complex, whether it be the analysis of football or taking a rather complex sporting topic and simplifying it down into a digestible message for people. I think that would help you a lot with your coaching, most definitely, especially with younger people at the moment. Have you felt that skill has helped you in a number of different areas?
Yes, but the trick is with it, and you are super right, but the trick with it, experience, it cannot be purchased in a supermarket.
No.
So to hit that stage with anything you do, you need that 7+ years mastery process. Because at the beginning, when we start to work in an area, we tend to complicate things, and then we get to a level of mastery, we end up simplifying it, and we end up seeing the less as more, and it is no different in journalism, analysis, or sport high performance and coaching. So potentially, we all have skills to a certain degree to simplify it, but I would just mention the experience as the main factor to get there, and it maybe your ability and better understanding of your field of expertise can help you to get there quicker.
Yep.
But when mastery happens, the simplification will come to the picture. So sometimes you can't buy time.
Yes. Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily mean long decades.
Have you found any ways to maybe accelerate that quote-unquote mastery experience with your ability to communicate to people? You'd mentioned that obviously repetition, and me personally, I believe repetition is probably the best way to mastery. But have you found any tricks, maybe any books that you've read, or any people in your life that might have helped you to really sharpen the spear and the message that you're able to deliver, whether it be on the football field or as a scout, or even as a media personnel?
Yeah, good question, and very interesting. I never thought about what would take you there quicker, because when you are in it, You are not. You have to stuck in, and you know, if you look for the wrong shortcuts, you get find out. So, but in saying that, probably there are right shortcuts as well, and one being what we mentioned already a few times is passion, repetition, and what I would like to underline is some kind of deep learning. So if you have both of them, and you are really into it with your passion, with the repetition is happening, you're actually doing twice as much as your next door colleague because you are more into it. This is not 9 to 5 for you. It may be 24/7, you know, and then life throws all different curveballs to you. You may have a high interest in something else, or you start your family, and your attention and your time cannot be sacrificed on certain things. But I think for people who has the passion, the repetition, and get into this deep learning, sort of a flow kind of space with their work, the mastery will happen definitely quicker. There is a trap, obviously, in there. Some people become obsessed with their job, and it can ruin other parts of their life, or make it difficult to build relationships or pay enough attention on health, family, and other important things. So you have to warn always yourself that's not everything what we do professionally to find that right balance.
But yeah, professionally speaking, the passion is really what's going to drive you towards that mastery. You mentioned the passion, I guess, pushing you to deep learning. When you talk about deep learning, what does that mean for you? Is that really just one's ability to get close to mastery, or are you doing anything different when you're thinking about, okay, I'm going to go about my day-to-day job, and I'm going to execute my day-to-day job with passion, which is of course going to accelerate learning, but have you ever segmented it to, okay, I'm going to go in on this topic and really begin to learn and have a deeper understanding as to what it is?
I think it's either the horse or the cart, and sometimes you have to put the cart in front of the horse in this process. Let it be surprising to hear, because sometimes when you start to simplify it and puzzle it into smaller pieces, and then you deconstruct the whole process, whatever job you are working on, and this simplification helps to master things. And then you end up with, making it really simple at the end of the day when you have mastery and you can pinpoint the important part of the working process, or the priorities, or the key PIs, or whatever terms your work is handcuff you to work in. So actually the breaking down story to make it simple and then reassemble it is I think key in deep learning. It is very similar than if you see someone trying to learn playing on piano, it's all very cloggy, nothing or squeaky, nothing really music type of thing coming out of it. And then a few comes together, then he or she goes back, tries again, and a few minutes later you just hear music. It comes through, or riding a bicycle, all the examples when we try to learn something.
So in the juggling of multiple roles, the key I'm really getting from this is the passion that you had, which allowed you the sustainability to maintain such roles and responsibilities and excel in such roles and responsibilities whilst holding other jobs at the same time. Like you mentioned, a lot of people in sport do have to wear different caps, multiple caps at once. Is there anything that you took from your experience in wearing multiple caps, probably still doing it now, where you go, okay, manage your time effectively by doing this. This is Gabor's tip for managing time effectively, or how did you go about juggling so many different roles, just from a personal perspective?
Yes, I'm unfortunately I don't have the recipe here to put down on a paper, but I think it is always the consciousness in it what you have to consider. Like there are other important things. You have to consciously put work aside, And it helps in other things. I just lately realized it, and I did some reading about it. When you brainstorm ideas and you have a list of seemingly good new initiatives, the best thing you can do it, and it will talk against time management, is procrastination. You leave it, sit on it. And when you sit on it, further thoughts will develop, and you start to pick out what was really good, or you will start a random conversation in the staff kitchen with someone on a completely other topic, but because it is in your back of head, you will bring it back and you hear an advice. Okay, so he or she is giving me something which says that point B is better than point A on my little new brainstorm list. So sometimes not doing it is actually better than
jumping in
on something straight away, and it will give you a better outcome. But time management wise, I think we are living in an absolutely insane society. The mobile phones, the laptop computers, the tablets are taking over way too much of our time, because I'm not sure if I'm the only one, but I catch myself to start work.
You're not the only one.
With a text message at 10 p.m. Even I'm telling myself that at 10 p.m. I want to read my book. And most of the time I keep it very short, or I say, I can wait until the morning, I put it aside, and I rather read the book. But the last 10 years is really posing new challenges for anyone in a professional working environment with the technology at our hand at all times, and people taking the advantage of it. So what I'm not too good at is something I usually suggest others to try, to say no. To say no a lot of times to people or to things. And I can't remember the last time when my phone was actually not on silent mode. I keep my phone always on silent because I'm not available all the time. I have to focus on conversations like this, emails and other stuff. It's still buzzing in my pocket, but then I don't bother my environment, and I can make a decision that this phone call is the one I want to receive now, or do I call back the person at the first convenient time. So little tricks like that.
And that was something that you brought in quite early, so you looked at when you're wearing multiple hats, you probably looked at the job descriptions that you've had, and you know what your responsibilities or your KPIs, as you mentioned before, for those jobs, and really just, like you'd mentioned, the distractions and procrastinations that can come with just even living in a normal workplace environment with soccer balls being kicked around or whatnot. But these are the roles and responsibilities I need to do. I'm going to focus here on this, and I'm going to cut out all the noise until the point that I want to invite that noise in. Is that?
Yes, this is exactly you. Verbalize it better than myself, and it's a juggling act. I can't tell that. I heard sort of suggestions doing emails only 2 hours a day between this time and that time. I don't think it works anymore. Like you can't restrict it so much. What I find fairly encouraging, that if you are able to surround yourself with like-minded people who are not necessarily thinking the same thing what you do, but someone who has flexibility, skills to work in multiple areas, you actually can multiply your working ability in the same work environment, because halfway through you have to be able to develop enough trust in your colleagues to pass on the project. Or just set up the project and let it go.
Being able to let go.
And shift responsibility with accountability into a larger number of people than yourself. So if you don't keep it a one-man show, never ever. There is no one is irreplaceable, and no one can handle all the work. So you have to bring in other people in your network, whatever area you work at. And if you do multiply roles, it is even more important to thinking staff. You are a part of a staff here, but I'm also potentially the boss of another staff there. So how does that work? And potentially also keep the boundaries. So if I'm the decision maker here, they don't want me to always be in the details.
Yeah.
While I am the staff member there, they expect me to give my 50 cents on the area I'm hired for.
Yeah.
And even I'm happy to share my opinion on other things. The core thing is that.
Is the KPIs and responsibilities.
Yeah.
I like that a lot, and I'm a big believer of that also. I see too many people kind of jumping around and trying too many different hats and not really focusing on what they're hired for or what they're supposed to be doing. We talked a little bit about your time in Coolum. I feel like from looking at your history, it was almost as if you moved to Australia was almost like a restart, like a lot of people when they move internationally.
Yeah.
And you've gotten to the point where you had some roles in opposition analysis and some coaching roles. Obviously, Coolum was and even at Olympic FC as well. Was that another bit of time there? And then you've been able to really settle in at a full-time position within Queensland football. How was that rebuilding process for someone like yourself? You mentioned, how old were you when you moved over?
Yeah, it was 10 years ago that I was 35.
Yeah.
Luckily, all of them being to a certain degree full-time, so definitely if you see the role only, at Coolum in Sunshine Coast Premier League, it was sort of a career step back, but a lifestyle step up.
Oh yeah, massively.
For the family. So I think it is a very valid trade-in.
Oh yeah.
While after that, you wonder if you should have keep it to this, because we are always inclined to go and try a little bit more. So I was guilty of that, and I had to move to Brisbane to maintain full-time sport involvement, because just literally there are more jobs in a metropolis than in a regional area in Australia and anywhere around the world. It is working the same way. So, but given that Brisbane is still a beautiful place to live and a metropolis which is not crazy yet, and hopefully it will keep its charm, I think it was also a good trade-in to do a little bit more professional in the sport world. But I became a technical director at Olympic in Brisbane and then at Western Pride in Ipswich. Both of them being full-time jobs. Potentially the training with them was I could spend a little bit less time on the field as a football coach, because I was rather responsible for other people's management, player development, and also the coaches mentoring. But I think they are all great learning curves. So I would say that settling in was not a particularly hard thing in a new country, because I worked full time most of the